Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Freshly Pressed. Today we're doing a back-to-back Australian special because I recorded a call with a chat with the Mac brothers from Melbourne just before this, and we have on our show Philip Tal Denson all the way from Darwin, Australia. Welcome to the show, Philip.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. In your own words, give us a introduction about yourself and a brief history about you as a creator, as an artist, and as a person.
Well, I mean, I'm in Darwin, but I'm actually a screenwriter, so I write feature film and TV. I've got some projects over in the US. We've got one with Scott Free's company. It's called Scott Free, Ridley Scott's company. I've written a bunch of TV stuff as well. I had a TV show over there, which it didn't get up in the end, but and here locally working down south and here on some local TV shows and a feature film with the Speary brothers and things like that. But as a creator, I've always been writing for many years, and whether it's comics or theatre or film or TV, and also art as well, it's all kind of part of the same creative outlook, I guess. Since I was quite young, yeah, I was
Wow,
drawing my own little comics as a kid as well. So yeah, it's really exciting to get into this medium.
fantastic. Yeah, yeah. Tell us a bit about your comics origins, to be honest. Like, what got you interested in comics in the first place as a reader and then as an artist, as a budding child artist, child protege.
About that. But yeah, do you know what? I was reading a lot of like Asterix and Obelix and Tintin comics when I was really
I
little. So
love
that sort
those.
of was my gateway. And then my dad had some like Conan and like European comics, the Incal and things like that I read. And then I was handed, I think I would have been maybe 10 years old. Someone handed me X-Men 2099. And that was what got me into the mainstream comics because I was a sci-fi guy already from back then. And then I just, I went all through my Marvel stage and my DC stage, and then Image, and then in the last, I would say, 10, 15, 20 years, it was mainly independent. I like to go find more esoteric or interesting independent stuff, less about the superheroes, but still just
Nice.
I just still collect comics to this day.
That's fantastic. You must check our website out. We have a lot of genre comics here. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. I love that. It's kind of similar for me as well. When I was growing up, I was reading a lot of comics that came with the newsagent, and
Yeah.
I think I grew up in India, so we had the only way to get comics were from the newsagents in the 90s.
Mm.
Um, and we used to get Phantom and Mandrake and bunch of those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
even
Mandrake's
X Men
an
actually.
Indian character, right? Is that the right one?
Which one?
Mandrake?
No, Mandrake is American. It's funny, like. Mandrake the Magician was an American character. They
Yeah.
actually did like a big team up with Phantom and Mandrake and a bunch of other characters called Defenders of the Earth. At some
Mm,
point, they made it into like Saturday morning TV show.
great.
Yeah, love those late '80s, early
No,
'90s
they were
Saturday
there.
morning cartoons.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nice, nice. That's amazing. So, what are your favorite? Some of your favorite characters, from those early days. Which characters did you love
Yeah,
the
it's
most?
it's interesting. Obviously, I was one of those ones who I thought Wolverine was like that was my he was my character. Obviously, he was the most popular character in the Marvel world. But and going to like Saturday morning cartoons, Transformers was big back then. Like the Transformers movie, the animated film, was like amazing for me as a kid. Hot Rod, he was cool in that film. But also like the Ninja Turtles. When I remember the first episode of that, like it just came on one morning, Saturday morning,
Yeah,
and me and my brother were like, "What is this?" And we made our own. I remember drawing our own characters that would maybe fit in that world, mutants and stuff. So yeah, I mean, a lot of things that have traveled through. But I remember Deadpool when Joe Kelly first wrote his ongoing series for Deadpool, which I actually think Joe Kelly should get more kudos for creating the personality of Deadpool.
mm,
Rob Liefeld created it with the artist, but I actually think Joe Kelly really gave us who Deadpool was. And then obviously, a lot of the European comics, Judge Dredd, 2099, like that kind of stuff. I got into as well.
I love it. I love Judge Dredd so much. Uh, I think my wife gifted me a few years ago a crossover between Judge Dredd and Batman.
Oh
Have you read that?
no!
It's amazing. It's time traveling Batman who travels between like various ages of Judge Dredd
Oh,
and various timelines of Judge Dredd. It's amazing. There's obviously like all kinds of villains, and he fights Judge Death and this, and like there's so many different kinds of villains he fights alongside Judge Dredd. It's pretty fascinating that whole
yeah.
crossover.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look that
Yeah,
up.
yeah. Nice, nice. That's amazing. Tell us a bit about Future Tales, the graphic novel that you did you write, draw, color, pencil,
No,
everything yourself?
I created it. No, we've used a lot of artists, so it kind of came from years and years when I was a kid. All these fairy tales. To me, they shared a universe. There was like the woods, or whether it was the big bad wolf. He'd pop up in a few different of these fairy tales, and I remember kind of connecting them in my head. And it wasn't until a few years ago that a group of mates who we created Wild North Comics, and to start that off, we are all going to do 10 pages each in an anthology. And we're like, what project should we do? And I came back to this project that I've wanted to do for years, like since I was a teenager. Actually, I first came up with Future Tales, which is a reimagining of classic fairy tales, but set in a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk world. But it's not just reimagining the stories; it's actually interweaving them and actually together building into one big story. So the first chapter is Red, which is Little Red Riding Hood's story, and she's like on a motorcycle going through this destroyed city, delivering a message from one bastion to the other. These are these underground cities of the survivors, and has a run in with the big bad wolf, which is the World Order Liberation Force. Um,
Mm,
but that kicks off the story because then that message means something to the next people. And the Goldilocks story or the Jack and the Beanstalk story, they all actually build, and the characters show up in each other's chapters, all leading up to a final chapter where they all join together to fight the big bad and like Avengers style team up. And that was to me the exciting part where I could weave all this stuff in this world that I really love, this post apocalyptic cyberpunk sort of aesthetic.
yeah, yeah. That's fantastic. That's such a fascinating take on the classic fairy tale thing. You weaved it into its own genre of things, and then all the characters as well. That's so good. Okay, I think that's a very clever use of fairy tales because in general, there's actually no real timeline to them, right? They can happen whenever. It's very whimsical. So you
Absolutely.
can yeah.
Yeah. There's this word I like to use, which is, I don't know if it's a real word, universatility. So it's universal and they're versatile. Like you can kind of mix and move, and they were like that since the start. Like we probably know the Brothers Grimm fairy tales quite well. That's sort of solidified them a little bit more, but they always had a different version of them depending on what country they were told. And although they often came from that European folklore stuff, it's worldwide, and that was one of the reasons why every chapter is the artist is from a different country from around the world. We have Filipino artists,
Ah,
we have French artists, Nigerian, Brazilian, Moroccan. Like there's different artists for each chapter, and they bring their own flavor to that chapter. Although the same characters do rock up, but so we can see their different take on that character, even though the designs are
yeah.
similar. But it was really great to connect with them, and they would bring their own version. Like say Cinderella, written the art was done by Silvia Ferreira from Brazil. She made her Brazilian, and the Filipino kids in Hansel and Gretel story, like they're Filipino because Purple Llama, who is this collective over there who does amazing art, they
Hmm.
brought that into, and I encourage them to bring that cultures into these characters and the stories.
Hmm. Hmm. No, that's amazing, and that's what makes it so rich to read as well, because you can obviously see different point of views, different styles, different cultures being reflected in the stories. It's also like I absolutely love different takes on the same character
Mm.
when they show up. I've read Future Tales, by the way, so I'm just giving it high praise because I absolutely loved the book, and it's uh, despite it being a graphic novel, I think I finished it in like 30 minutes. It was
Mm.
uh,
It's
I
a quick
felt
way to
a bit
really
of like
get you into
yeah,
it.
it's a very quick read. Yeah.
And the
Um,
gold, I don't know if people can see that, but it's kind of got that gold foil title, which we really love that we can bring that into it. But yeah,
yeah. Can you show the two covers as well? There are two
oh
covers
yes.
to Future
Well,
Tales.
this is
Yeah.
the lead cover, but I mean, I just get it on the back. There's one by J.C. Grand, and there
Yeah.
is some that have that as the front cover. We have two variants actually. And going off
Yeah.
what you said, like I also love to see different takes on characters when different artists would draw the characters we know from comic books. So that was one thing we did. We got different artists to do different covers, so you can take your pick a little bit.
Yeah. It kind of like it's obviously different in the sense that though the styles are very varied, they're not
Mm.
so different that you will not connect to the story from one to another. It still reminded me of. Do you know there's a Star Wars series called The Visions? Have you seen that?
Yes, very much. Yeah.
Kind of reminded me of that because it has a lot of different stories in the same universe, and these stories, yeah. Uh, though in Visions they don't connect to each other, but in your book they obviously have they dovetail at the end,
Yeah.
and
And
but
like Red,
still,
the character of Red would pop up in like Goldilocks' story for a little bit, or on we really wanted to interweave it. But it's interesting you bring up Visions because we're actually pitching it now as an animated series, and we have a little bit of interest. Who knows? Fingers crossed. But we like the idea that we're now just deciding if we would do it all the same studio, where we just every episode is done in the same style, or if we did the Love, Death, and Robots style, where different studios from around the world do their version. You can have a 2D one, you can have a 3D one. We could do some different
yeah.
rendering, but still telling the same story. I'm attracted to that, and I love that about Visions, where you have that real anime style, and then you have a real, more European or American style. So yeah, there's something about that that I really like too.
Yeah. No, I think this Future Tales can benefit from both in that sense because obviously it works both as an anthology and also
Mm.
as a story, as like an interconnected story. So who knows? Yeah, that's. I hope it goes ahead.
Yeah.
All the best to
Well,
you for that.
thank you. I mean, that's a little bit of a scoop for you. But also, we've got nothing signed yet. We'll see what happens. But it is interesting because the IP, as in the intellectual property of this, is obviously quite well known. We're dealing with characters that everybody knows, Little Red Riding Hood or Cinderella, or Sleeping Beauty. Like they at least know a version of that. So it does cut through this market, which can be a little bit risk averse to new ideas. So this is a way to
Yeah.
kind of Trojan horse that a new idea into something that people are aware of. So people with the power who choose what goes up and what doesn't, they can be like, oh, okay, this is fairy tales, but in a new world, I think we can see an avenue to market for that. So who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. And like there's obviously a lot of different takes. Some very like fantastical, some gothic, and things like that. Like Hansel and Gretel has got so many spin-offs. There's
Yeah.
I think there was this movie where they reversed the role of Hansel and Gretel. Was it
Which
where
hunt
like Gretel and Hans?
are they adults?
No, it was. I think so. Yeah. I don't exactly remember the name of that movie, but yeah, there's so many different takes on these characters. But
Yeah.
Cyberpunk hasn't been done before. Like that
Yeah.
setting is very new, so
And that's why
I
the
think that
animated
lends.
side of it lends itself to animation because visually we can tell this stuff. And like I'm a huge animation fan. Like when Netflix launched Arcane, that series Arcane, the visuals of that was just amazing. I wasn't really into that game, League of Legends, so
Hmm.
much. I knew about it and I'd seen things, but they really sucked me in because of the animation was so good.
Yeah, I love a good cyberpunk animation thing. I
Yeah.
remember when this movie. I know it's not the most loved movie of all time, but it's still. I have a very vivid memory of watching Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within in the theaters when it came out originally.
Same.
It was, yeah.
It was amazing.
It's
Right? It looked so. That was at the time was like groundbreaking visuals. I think they
yeah,
went bankrupt
yeah,
after that. The studio who did that.
yeah. Was it a Japanese studio that did
I
that? I
think
think
so, but I mean, it looked
yeah,
amazing. And I remember Final Fantasy VII as a kid was a game that I was like, that. This is an epic storytelling. You know, Cloud and Sephiroth. Is that how you pronounce the bad
yeah,
guy's name? So I was a sucker for Final Fantasy as well. The
yeah,
story may
yeah.
not have hung together as well. I know people say that about that film, but the visuals were so good. I was there. I was absolutely.
No, no, that movie was fantastic. It was a slow burn. I don't like people were expecting a lot of action and things like
Mm,
that, and that's why it got a lot of bad rep. But I think it really worked for me because the story spoke to me at a much deeper level, and it was just a beautiful take on the characters as
mm,
well. So yeah,
right.
no, fantastic. I would love to see that. Tell us a bit about what you love in Cyberpunk specifically. What m- movies or games? We talked about Final Fantasy.
Wow.
What
Well,
what
in
else do you like?
Cyberpunk, yeah, I would say
Yeah,
obviously Blade Runner would be up there. I was a big Philip K. Dick fan, reading all his books, all short stories. Yeah, right. Like, and just the storytelling and the reality questioning. The aesthetic is quite cool about Cyberpunk as well. And games like Cyberpunk 2077 was like it kind of allows us to live that. But I also love the post-apocalyptic genre. I think there's a lot to be said there. I just love things that are broke, like things. I don't know what you call that aesthetic, but the ruins. I love broken ruins and things like that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I feel like
Post-apocalyptic.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I think like combining the two is an interesting take because often cyberpunk is very city based and there's a lot of signs and neon or whatever, but why not have a post-apocalyptic of that cyberpunk type aesthetic? But that being said, I also like any new take. Like when I get into fantasy, if it's just a classic Lord of the Rings style dwarfs, elves fantasy, which I was raised on and playing D&D and things like that, I still enjoy it. But if it's a different take on fantasy, like biopunk, or we created our own one called junk punk, which is like just everything is pulled together from whatever people can find. I love that visual style as well. Um, so any kind of steampunk, biopunk, cyberpunk, all those variations, I just love them.
Yeah, yeah. Wild North has another book in similar genre, right? Dead City Lullabies is similar in that sense. It is
Yeah, that
about
post-apocalyptic, it's and beautiful artwork. Aiden did
beautiful
amazing
artwork.
work, and that was our second
Yeah,
book. And I just feel like, these first two books are really just sort of setting the foundations, because we did our anthologies, and now we just got some more exciting ones coming along the way too, including like anthropomorphic animal samurai type book, and some
yeah,
other exciting ones. Got superheroes
yeah,
as well. Like we something for everyone.
yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's the word I was looking for. In the previous podcast, we were chatting about a show called Odd Taxi. I don't know if you have seen it.
Ah,
Uh, it's an anime. It's about an anthropomorphic world where animals behave like human beings, but
mm.
it's about a walrus who drives taxi around
It sounds
in
familiar.
Tokyo.
Is it old?
Came, I think it was like a couple of years ago,
Nice.
or yeah, it came out a couple of years ago. Yeah, yeah.
I have to
I'm
look
pretty
it up.
sure it came out in 2022 or 23 or
See,
something.
this is the
Yeah.
thing. If it wasn't made in the '90s or the '80s, I would. I mean, maybe the early 2000s. I was still, and I still try
Yeah,
to keep up on it. On things, but it's so much different. And anime changed. I feel like there was a lot more slice of life and school
yeah,
kids,
yeah,
which is good. That a lot of there's audience for that. But I like the
yeah.
Akiras and the Ghost in the Shells and the Ninja Scrolls, things like that. That's what I want more of
That
that.
was a different time.
Mm.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Like, obviously, Akira and uh, what else? What was it? Fist of the
Industry.
North Star.
Oh yeah,
Uh, yeah.
yeah. These things take me back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's something to be said about 80s and 90s cyberpunk, like there's obviously Albert Pune doing his own thing, like
Mm.
Cyborg, and those
Mm.
kind of movies with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Uh there's there's a whole like I think it's a genre in itself.
Absolutely. Like that action, sci-fi, yeah. And you know what? We're doing it again. I think things are coming back. As long as they were like connected to some franchise, which I still love. Like I'll go and watch like a new Terminator, a new Aliens movie, whatever it is, because I'm so connected to them. But what I really want is brand new ideas, unique, something interesting that could be in those worlds, but something we haven't
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
before. And I feel like when we do that, we often the we try to be a bit safe and or try to appeal to a lot of people. Like the Borderlands film recently, amazing games.
yeah,
I love those games. The visuals are amazing, and that sort of
yeah,
2D rendered comic style visual. But then the
yeah,
film was just very, I wouldn't say bland, but because it was very visually. But yeah, I don't know what we're doing, but hopefully we can do more exciting
yeah.
cyberpunk, future sci-fi, anything. I'll take any genre, to be honest.
And they got some really fantastic actors for that movie. I
Hey,
don't know
Blanchett.
what happened there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Kate Blanchett. How can you go wrong with Kate Blanchett? She's the best.
Yeah, it's the script. Everything for me. I mean, as a writer, and you might be similar. It all comes down to script. We need to make these
That's
scripts
true.
and push the boundary. Not push the boundaries necessarily, but go places and do things that we haven't seen before that make an audience go, "Oh, that's funny." That's why Deadpool did so well, because he was sort of poking fun at the superhero stuff whilst also breaking a fourth wall and going somewhere that we weren't expecting from a Marvel or X-Men film. And then
Yeah,
obviously then that's
yeah,
become a trope in and of itself. But now it's we just need to keep exploring and taking those risks, and I think comics are a perfect medium for that because it doesn't cost the bank. You can try out new ideas, you can see how they go, and you can go direct to your audience and get
yeah.
that feedback. So I think comics is still and has always been the medium that takes the most risks.
Yeah, it's not even funny how many screenwriters I have spoken to in the last year who have jumped the ship, moved to comics
Really?
simply for those reasons because they can explore things more freely with comics. You know, like not just the cost of producing them, but also like just the ideas that they can explore and they can go, oh, if this can this be more ridiculous, like can we make like unicorns as detectives in space? Yeah, you can, of course you can make
That's a
angry
great
unicorns as
idea.
detectives in
I'm going
space.
to write that down.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you can make something really ridiculous and make it work, right? That's the beauty of
Absolutely.
comics.
You can, and it becomes down to the story. I used to say the visuals, the art is what attracted me in, but it's the concept that hooks me. So I can see amazing art, which yeah, it does attract the eye, and but then the concept, what is going on, and sometimes it can be as simple as a detective unicorn in space. I'm already reading that. Here's take my money.
Exactly. No, that's the fun of it, and that's why like I think independent comics are catching on because people also want to create stories that they like.
Mm,
They're putting up on Kickstarter and various crowdfunding websites and just see like if audience find them and
yeah.
they end up finding their tribe, to be honest. Like there's going to be some people who like that, who are intrigued by that idea, right?
Mm,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's what the beauty of internet is. You can reach people on the other side of the earth with
Mm.
who really resonate with the stuff that that you do. So
Yeah, in fact, I when Kickstarter sort of started, it was when I had started. I wasn't collecting as much comics, but it opened up. I was looking online. I was on Comixology and trying to find all those fresh new independent stuff. And Kickstarter, I still go on Kickstarter and just scroll and try to find something, and I'll just randomly support things because I want to see them come to life. And I think I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, I have more independent comics than I have Marvel and DC. I mean, I still buy Image because they can do independent stories or individualized new storytelling worlds. I just don't buy Marvel and DC anymore because there's so much great independent stuff.
yeah, it's also very like they keep resetting the universe so many times. It's just
Yeah,
hard to keep a track of like
yeah,
where's the timeline at the moment. It's
that's
just
true.
too hard to
How
do.
many Secret Wars have we had? Is this the third Secret War? Battle World again? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we have good runs. We still have I'm still keen on reading the new Spider-Man 2099 run that's coming out. It's really
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
Um,
I've always loved that part of that world, and also um, and I kind of like what they're doing with the MCU now. I feel like they're going to bring the mutants in X-Men. I've always wanted the X-Men back in there, so MCU kind of fell away. But just talking about comics and more known comics, check out the Transformers series. I should look it up
okay.
because the writing in that, like I've not collected Transformer comics. I maybe had some as a kid, but I haven't had been collecting them. But this latest series, I think it's like up to issue 9 or something. It's been really good. Transformers is
Okay,
really trying to do something.
that's fantastic. No, I think there's a lot of like IP work, especially by Dynamite and
Mm.
some of these folks that's actually doing some really good, interesting news stories. So there's the new Powerpuff Girls that I found was really exciting.
Someone was telling me about. and it's good. It's written well or something.
It's written really well. Yeah, yeah. Um, there's also the new Rick and Morty by our fellow Australian guy, Christoph Bogax. He is, yeah, pretty fantastic writing. I picked it up in New York. That Rick and Morty.
I'll
Yeah,
check it out.
there's this. Yeah, plenty of new good IP work coming up. Especially like with these. The most interesting IP comic I picked up in the last few years was a crossover between Archie and Predator. I don't know if you've ever read that.
Oh, I heard, yeah, because
Pre-
they did a zombie version of Archie, and now there's like a predator. Yeah, that's gonna be
Predator in
cool.
Riverdale. Yeah, there was like, yeah. So yeah, that was very interesting. Amazing. Uh, I love this segment because I know we've been talking a lot about pop culture. I would say, let's say, top five things that you like. In like maybe just top five things that come to your head when you think about pop culture. Could be
Yeah,
movies, TV shows.
it's tough because there's so many, but I'll try to be specific because if I just said sci-fi, which I'm sure I've said in the past, that's enough. So, first literature, I'm going to say um, Philip K. Dick or Ted Egan. He's an Australian sci-fi writer. You probably know. He writes these amazing, very scientifically sound short stories. Um, in the animation space, I'll say Ghibli, or actually, I'll specifically say Porco Rosso. I don't know why that film was so important to me. I was an Indiana Jones fan, so I love Porco Rosso. In the game space, I might go with like LucasArts games, something like the Monkey Island series. Actually, you know what? I'll go with Full Throttle because I love it. Was a point and click
Okay.
adventure from the '90s. I really love that. And there's heaps of the Dig was really cool, the sci-fi one, and some other really good ones. Um, in features, I would say, oh man, there's just so much to choose from. But recently, I, I s- I saw the Transformers One at the cinemas just the other day. I think they did a really
Mm,
good job. I know it's maybe not going so great at the box office, but it sort of rejuvenated my love for Transformers.
mm,
And in
mm,
the TV space, there's just so much. But I think I mentioned it before. Arcane. I'm looking forward to the new series of Arcane, um,
mm.
and hopefully my TV series that comes out. And who knows, mate?
Awesome. I know you already gave a good scoop, but yeah, I'm not going to ask you which network you're talking to.
No, no, no. Early
It's
days.
okay.
Early days.
Early days, yeah. I to be fair, like always love when some Australian comics are adapted into a TV show. I absolutely loved Clever Man, both the show and the
Yes.
comic.
Did
Uh,
it start as a comic, or did the comic come from the series?
I think comic came from the series.
Okay.
It was the other way around. Yeah,
But
that's
it's
what
cool. It's genre stuff. It's using like First Nations things. It was a yeah. They did really well with that.
they did really well. Yeah, yeah. I love everything by Gestalt. They're the best. They also I know that in Digiverse folks, the Scott
Mm,
Wilson and
yeah,
the team, they're doing a TV show with ABC. I'm
that's
not
fun.
sure in what capacity, but they're doing a TV show from what I know with ABC. Yeah,
Yeah, we know that team. I think they Scott might have even came up to our Wild North Comic Con earlier this year. So
nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's another thing we should talk about. Check out Wild North website, wildnorthcomics.com. The Future Tales thing is up there as well. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things coming out of Wild North. Gestalt is, like you said, some of the best
yeah,
Australian comics come out of there, and they've made TV series about like the Deep, done some amazing work, and they're a great team. And you know what? The more we help each other and talk to each other, I've got a friend down in Melbourne who does comics to movies, like Sean, who like the more
yeah.
does,
Sean, yeah, Sean Keenan, he's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah,
yeah. Stephen Koch, he's done amazing stuff, and got into
I
libraries
love
and
Steven.
schools.
Yeah,
Yeah, you guys all know each other. This is what I love. Like we feel a little bit isolated up in Darwin. And as soon as we connected to the other Australian, it's just like it's a family, and I think we just support each other. It's great.
Absolutely, absolutely. You can see some fantastic work there, right? Like Dead City Lullabies by Aiden.
Yeah.
Australia is such a cool. It's
Mm.
Australia is actually one of the early Kickstarters I supported. So it was so long ago, back in the day, that I supported it. It's still one of my favorite books to come out of Australia. There's
I think
obviously,
go ahead.
sorry, go for it, go for it, go for it.
I was just going to say we've actually been developing that up now as a animated series too, and have
Nice.
I mean I won't give too much away, but we've put together a whole package, including an animated proof of concept that we have sent out to someone quite important that we won't talk about now. But yeah, we're really keen on that, and anyone who sees that, they go, "Oh, this is amazing, Australia! This should be something." It's like our version of Avatar: Last Airbender, that kind of fun adventure series that really needs to kick on.
Yeah. And I love Zero Point by Jono. It's Zero Point has a TV show, has a series as well, right?
That's how
Animated
it
series.
started. So John was
Uh,
making a comic, his own one, and it was called "Astounding Tales of Hero Fiction." And it was like a kind of a
mm,
callback to those old, like those first Superman comics and those old type comics. And then developed it, got some funding, developed it as an animated series. I co-wrote some of the episodes with him. He directed. Tim Parrish, I believe, was the producer, and then he's kicked on and he's made all these like the origin series for Zero Point. It's a great character, and there's so much complexity to his world compared to like Future Tales, which we kind of just get in quick, and that's why it's a quick read. It's just like this is each story and how they all come together. Jono does the opposite. He does the deep dive into the characters and the history and the whole world and the power systems. He's great. Jono is amazing, and this should be. I think Zero Point should be an ongoing series. We'll see.
yeah, yeah. No, I read the first four issues of Zero Point. It's pretty amazing. Always, whenever somebody comes to my table, I pitch it as an indigenous Captain Australia. Uh,
Ah, that's good. I've never thought of
kind
that.
of feels like that, right? Because it has origins in a war, and
In the military.
it's
Yeah,
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 good point.
yeah.
So much references, and that's because he is such an encyclopedic knowledge of old superheroes and anime and things like that. He does bring all
Yeah,
these layers into it. Yeah, it's a good
yeah.
point. I'm going to use that now.
Amazing, amazing. Cool. We're coming close to time, but before we go, I would love for you to take the stage and make an elevator pitch for Future Tales, the beautiful graphic novel we're talking about today.
Okay, so yeah, Future Tales. It's post-apocalyptic cyberpunk reimagining of fairy tales. Um, heroes and characters that you all know and love, but you've never seen them before. Um, Jump in and have a look. Amazing art from all around the world. And look, it's only $15? Is that really? Man, that's cheap.
Yep,
100
yep.
pages of pure, like, there's some great art in there, some more Disney style, and then there's like some amazing visuals and light art. It's so good. Go out and get
Yeah,
yours today. I've got the Dead City Lullabies one as well. I'm just
that's
surrounded by.
fantastic. I have all of them as well, but unfortunately my books are back because I'm moving houses.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have shown them as well. But if you can catch us at the next two conventions in November, and we'll be there with Wild North catalog in physical copies. So do catch us in Sydney if you're here, and you can meet Philip at other conventions. Are you doing any more conventions this year or early next year?
Hopefully, yeah, if my schedule allows. I did pop down to Sydney last year, but this year we did our one up here. But yeah, I'm going to be coming down.
Cool. Yeah, I met Aiden at the Sydney Supernova this year at Wild North's booth. Yeah, so let's yeah, we'll I think we'll keep working together, and you'll see more of us File North and Comics one together at conventions. Thank
Perfect.
you. Thanks a lot, Phil, for coming on the show, and I really appreciate your time. All the best for rest of your press tour. It's a I know it's a grind, but got to do what you
Keep
got to
going.
do.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Until next time, stay gold, everyone.